All right, so I wanted to give you another video to explain a little bit more about the factoring these trinomials where the coefficient of the first term is 1. All right, so taking a look at number 10, here it is x squared minus 7x minus 30. Okay. All right. So in the warm-up that she did, remember that the 30 is the product. It's two numbers multiplied together give 30, but at the same time, those same two numbers that add up to give the middle term, and in this case, we're going to be the negative 7. So what I like to do is I always like to list the factors of my product, and I do a smaller number column and a larger number column. To list all of my factors to make sure that I have them. So my smallest would be 1 and my largest factor is 30. And then I keep going down the list to list them. So I've got 1 and 30, I've got 2 and 15, 3 and 10. And then notice if I check 4, 4 is not a factor of 30. So I can't have that. 5 is a factor of 5 and 6. And then this is a way to make sure that you've listed all of your factors. Your two bottom numbers should be relatively close to one another. And when you're doing factors, they're only whole numbers. All right, now what I like to do is a little trick with signs, okay? Now notice that my product is negative. So if my product is negative, I know, in order to get a negative product, that one factor has to be positive and one factor has to be negative. Hard part is figuring out which one goes with which, okay? Because it matters that I need to get that negative 7x, okay? So in this case, you look to your middle term. If your middle term is negative, that means that all your larger factors have to have that negative because you want to end up with a negative. So what I do is I go down my list. All my larger ones are negative, while all my smaller ones are going to be positive. Okay, so whatever sign the middle term, and this works for all of them too, okay? So whatever sign the middle term carries, the larger factors have that sign. Have to have that sign, okay? And I'll do a couple others with you too, just to show you, okay? So in this case here, which ones add up to give me negative 7? Notice it's positive 3 and negative 10. So it would be x plus 3 times x minus 10. Or remember, you can write it as x minus 10 times x plus 3. However, you cannot switch the signs. The 10 has to be negative, the 3 has to be positive because you want to end up with that negative 7. If you were to switch it where 3 is negative and 10 would be positive, then that middle term would be a positive 7x, and that's not what that's going to be, okay? All right, so let me do another one with you as well. I don't know if she did anything from set 4, but so that was something from set 3. Okay, notice they're all like the same. But let's do a set 4 one here, okay? All right, so let's take a look at, for instance, number 15 here. So 15, you've got y squared minus 17y plus 72. Of course, I pick one with many factors. All right, I've got 1 and 72, 2 and 36, 3 and 24, 72 and 4 is 4 and 18. I'm using my calculator, by the way. 5 is not a factor of 72. 6 is a factor, so you have 6 and 12. 7 is not a factor of 72. And then we have 8 and 9. So notice, I know that I've got all my factors because my two bottom numbers are relatively close to one another. There's not any whole numbers in between 8 and 9 that would be the factors, okay? All right, now notice in this case for 72, as the product is positive. So if it is positive, that either means both factors will be positive or both factors will be negative. Okay, so look to the middle term. My middle term is negative 17y, which means everybody's going to be negative, not times, but negative, okay? All right, so those that add up to give me negative 17, negative 8, and negative 9. So here, y minus 8 and y minus 9, or y minus 9 times y minus 8. So real quick, I'll erase this side here. When I'm doing my signs, okay, I always do it like I did here. Obviously, the lady didn't do it because she's not Mrs. Veely. Not that my way is any better, but it helps me with the signs, okay? So this is what I do. If the product is positive, like I just did, it can either be two positives or it can be two negatives. So the middle term will decide in terms of what it's going to be. So if it's positive, that means you have two positive factors. Or if the middle term is negative, then that means you have two negative factors, okay? Now, if your product is negative, that means one factor has to be positive and one factor has to be negative. So once again, the middle term still determines it, okay? So if the middle term is positive, larger factors are going to be positive. And if the middle term is negative, then the larger factors are just negative, okay? So whatever that middle term carries, your larger factors are going to have that same sign because you want to end up with that sign. All right, so let me do another one with you too, because just noticing here the bottom one, okay? All right, the bottom one is saying factor by the GCF first. So sometimes we can't pull out, or sometimes we have to pull out a term before we can do anything here, okay? I'll do these ones in orange here, or red, I don't know, okay. All right, so for instance, I don't know, which number do you want to do? 23, because it's first? Sounds good. All right, so in this one here for 23, you have 4k squared, 12k plus 8 here, okay? All right, so I'm going to take out a 4 from each term, and then I'm left with k squared plus 3k plus 2. Remember, when you take out that multiple, you're dividing each term by that value, okay? So every term is divided by 4. So now you have, after you take out the 4, this is what's left, okay? So now we're going to factor this. Now remember from the other day, the difference of two squares would be 2 terms. So here we're left with 3. All right, so I'm going to list the factors of 2, which are just 1 and 2. My product is positive, so that either means 2 positives or 2 negatives. And in this case, my middle term is positive 3k. So everybody's positive. The two factors that multiply to give me 2 but add up to give me 3 are 1 and 2. So it would look like this: 4 times k plus 1 times k plus 2, or 4 times k plus 2 times k plus 1. And that's my final answer.